You know that little zap you get when you touch a doorknob? Or how about when your cat's fur seems to stand on end for no reason? Well, that's static electricity. For us, it's mostly just a minor annoyance. You know, a weird little quirk of physics. But it turns out we've been looking at it all wrong.
Yeah, what if I told you that for a whole world of tiny creatures all around us, that very same force isn't a nuisance at all? For them, static electricity is actually a fundamental tool. It's a superpower they use for travel, for hunting, and for survival. What's just a funny little party trick for us is literally a law of nature for them.
In fact, this is so important, it's spawning a whole new field of science to study it, called electrostatic ecology. Scientists are now realizing that Earth's natural electric fields might be just as vital to many animals as the food they eat or the air they breathe. We're talking about an invisible force that has shaped life in ways we're just now starting to get our heads around.
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to shrink down, way down, from our human scale. Forget those little shocks we feel. For an animal that's just a few millimeters long, the world is a completely different place. So let's see this in action, starting with some of the more well-known masters of static.
The sheer variety of ways they use this is just incredible. For example, bees build up a positive charge while flying, and that makes negatively charged pollen literally leap from a flower onto their bodies. It's a critical part of the pollination our food supply depends on. Then you've got tiny spiders doing this thing called ballooning, where they release silk threads to catch electric fields and fly for hundreds of kilometers. Ticks use a host's static charge to leap across gaps that would otherwise be impossible. And some caterpillars can even sense the electric fields of predators, like wasps, giving them a kind of sixth sense. You see, this isn't just a couple of clever animals. It's like an entire electrostatic toolkit being used all across the natural world.
But let's go even smaller. We're going to dive into the world of one of the most studied creatures on Earth, the nematode, or roundworm, specifically C. elegans. And these tiny little guys, about a millimeter long, gave scientists a real head-scratcher.
So here's the deal. Researchers kept finding these worms stuck to the inside lids of their sealed lab dishes. How in the world did they get up there? I mean, they're worms, right? You'd assume they crawled. But when they pointed high-speed cameras at them, well, what they saw looked less like biology and more like magic.
It turns out they weren't crawling at all. They were jumping. It all starts with this crazy posture called nixtation, where they just stand up perfectly still on their tails. And then, get this, when a statically charged insect, say a bee, flies nearby, its electric field creates this powerful attractive force. So powerful, it literally yanks the worm right off the ground and through the air, turning it into a tiny, willing hitchhiker on its way to a new home.
And believe it or not, this isn't some random accident. It's a full-blown, coordinated strategy. Researchers actually watched them build these living towers, stacking up to 200 of themselves on top of each other. Why would they do that? To get a little higher, to increase the odds that the worm at the very top gets snagged by a passing insect. It's a brilliant electrostatic escape plan.
Okay, so we've seen static electricity used for travel and for pollination. Pretty amazing stuff. But what happens when a superpower like this is used for something a little more malicious? Well, it turns out another type of nematode has mastered this exact same trick, but they're not trying to escape, they're trying to hunt.
Let me introduce you to the Steiner Nema carpacopsy. This guy is a parasite. It doesn't want to ride, it wants a meal. And it uses that exact same electrostatic leaping ability to launch itself through the air and ambush unsuspecting insects.
And the scale of this jump, I mean, it is just staggering. These little worms can cross distances up to 25 times their own body length. To give you some perspective, that would be like one of us leaping clear over a 10-story building in one jump. It's just an incredible display of power.
But okay, is it actually an effective way to hunt? Well, just look at the numbers. With that static boost from their target, their jumps are successful about 80% of the time. Now, take away that static, and the success rate absolutely plummets to just 5%. So you see, without static electricity, their entire hunting strategy just wouldn't work. It's not a nice-to-have, it's everything.
All right, so this is all incredibly cool for sure. But you might be wondering, does it matter to us, back here in our big human world? And the answer is a huge yes, because understanding this invisible electric web, it really changes how we look at some major planet-wide processes.
First off, think about pest control. I mean, if we really get the hang of the electrical relationship between a crop pest and its parasitic worm predator, we could maybe use static fields to make those predators even better at their jobs. But there's something even bigger. This science helps us solve a huge global mystery, the strange phenomenon of aeroplankton.
Aeroplankton is pretty much exactly what it sounds like, plankton, but for the air. See, scientists have known for ages that these vast communities of tiny creatures are just up there, in the atmosphere, traveling all over the globe. The big question was always, how? How did they get up there in the first place? And it looks like electrostatic forces are the key. It allows them to hitch a ride on charged particles of dust and moisture and just spread life across the entire planet.
And the really wild part? This is all so new. I mean, most of these major breakthroughs have happened in just the last 5 years or so. We are literally at the very beginning of mapping this invisible electric world and figuring out how deeply it impacts, well, everything.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If we've overlooked something this big, this fundamental, for so long, what else is out there? What other invisible forces are quietly shaping the story of life on Earth, just waiting for us to finally notice?